So let's just touch back on what we covered in Premiere Pro. We had made a new project and we did a little bit of masking and layering and keyframing. So let's just go over that just briefly. This demo is just for your reference in case there's like a method that we covered in class that you want to replicate in your own project. So let's go over to new project, and in new project, make sure you are in local. I'm going to have my file on my desktop, and I had made, let's see, I'm going to uncheck that. I had my videos in this Premiere Pro demo file folder, so I can check that and it will tell me I have 2 selected within it, right? So I can go back and just verify what's on there. What's nice about this preview is that you can scrub through videos quickly to make sure content, like if there's specific content you're looking for, you can upload it. I'm just gonna title this video demo and making sure my project location is saved into that folder. By default, it will save to the Adobe Premiere Pro folder within your file documents or document files. Yeah, I think that's the correct term. But I would recommend strongly saving those Premiere Pro files alongside your video. And you see here, this is the one we did in class. I'm just gonna uncheck that. Once I'm happy with that, I'm gonna create. And then we did talk about the interface. This is on Canvas in case you do just like need a refresher on the vocabulary. Up top is the menu. On the left, we have the source monitor, or where the effect control panel will be. That's what we predominantly utilized in class. We have our program monitor, so our video preview here. Our timeline, where we put all of our clips in and do our like cutting and editing and rearranging. Our tools, and then our panel doc, which this should show us the files that we have collected and are putting together later in our timeline. So going back to this, I am in the learning workspace. We can change this just to editing to get rid of that learning panel. Let's see. So because I uploaded my files based on the folder, it auto uploaded this sequence. Now, right now this doesn't matter to me. We did talk about removing and then recreating the sequence. Up in menu, sequence settings, that's where we were adjusting the frame size. Okay, so if you need to make something a different aspect ratio, you can go ahead and do that here. I'm just gonna leave it. And into the video, into like the basics of editing, I'm gonna go in my timeline using this bottom bar to zoom in, and I'm gonna scrub through with this blue bar. I can also play the video here and scrub through this way. So first let's get rid of this Detroit historical title screen. I'm gonna grab my razor tool, which is also keyboard shortcut C. And I'm gonna go right there, right on top of my timeline, and cut it as soon as this screen ends. And then go back to my selection tool, or keyboard shortcut V. Select, clicking and dragging, selecting all of that, and just, I'm going to delete it and move that over. Okay, so I think we're going to cut this video here. So C for razor tool, V, and let's add them on top of each other. So remembering that whatever is on top is gonna show on your preview. We're not seeing that, you know, we're not seeing this river waterfall scene because this is on top. I'm just gonna cut that there, move it out of the way. So I'm gonna add that masking effect. So with this clip selected, go over to Effect Controls. And if you don't have Effect Control, make sure you go to Menu, Window, Effect Controls. And then you'll see that we can edit either the source file or the sequence. I'm gonna make sure it's on the sequence. We have adjustments for the masking, the opacity, and if you remember, we select either the ellipse, the polygon, or the pen tool to create a mask. So one thing we didn't do is do the freeform Bezier tool. And what's really nice about that is you can get specific shapes by just clicking and dragging. You see I can pull this far away to create these curves. And this is similar to, like, you could also generate like the rectangle, the polygon tool, but or add more points to your path, but this is a cool way to just like add a real specific shape. So we have our mask created, and it will hide everything except for what is within the path. Or we can invert it to hide everything inside the path. So it's up to you if you're trying to hide something or expose something. We also played around with the blend mode. So this is something I recommend just experimenting with, seeing how each blend mode will affect the layer below it. You need to have overlapping video for this to take effect. So for example, if I take this, let's add a mask, and we'll just mask it. Just leave that right there. My blend tool won't really do anything because it has nothing to blend with. But as soon as I move this over here, and I'm just clicking, dragging, holding shift to make a perfect rectangle, as soon as they overlap, you get that nice difference in transparency or the blending. So this is something, like I said, experiment with. I think that looks okay to me so far. Okay. So next thing we did was keyframing. So I'm going to keyframe this mask feathering. And in my effect control panel, there's another timeline. There's all these timelines you can scrub through, right? So I'm going to scrub just about there. It's about almost a minute long clip. So I'm gonna grab the little stopwatch button here to toggle the keyframe. And then I'm gonna scrub till about there and toggle another keyframe. So this is my first keyframe. This is where the animation starts, or the effect, whatever you want to call it. And this is where it ends. So what I can do is scrub through. You see my mask feather is at 10. I'm gonna scrub here, maybe make it 40. Scrub a little farther. Let's make it 300. Scrub a little farther, and I can even type it in the number. And what this will do is tell this video when it needs to change its feathering. You see slowly this video on top is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, feathering out, while that video on the bottom is still that little rectangle, or I should say like the narrow rectangle. And then now it's decreasing. As we move through the timeline, you see that feather decrease back to that original size. Now, if I wanted it to just continue expanding, I would, make sure the value of the feather was expanded, like a larger number. And I would move that keyframe to the end, like the very end, like here, the very end. But I wanted this sort of growing and then shrinking effect. I'm gonna grab that bottom video, and I think what I'm gonna do is do a mask expansion keyframe. I'm gonna make the beginning and the end, and let's see. Moving my timeline and then changing the value. So let's see what that looks like. See, it's starting to get bigger. And then it will shrink back. Cool. Now, if I don't like any of these keyframes, as you'll see, I'm going to zoom in. We have a value of 80 and then 300. This is a huge jump. Now, I can just delete this. That way we have a more gradual playing of effects. So having keyframes farther away from each other gives a more slow growing or slow gradual, and having I guess let me start over here. Having keyframes with very different values. So this has you know, a mask expansion of 54. And this keyframe has a mask expansion of 320, right? 330. So it's going to be a more gradual change, a more gradual growing of that mask expansion because they're a little bit farther apart. These two right here, right? But these two keyframes are a little shorter, a little closer together. And so this goes from 335 down to, you know, 60 something in a much smaller time period than it takes to grow from that 50 to 300 and some. That means that the speed in which it changes is going to be slower here and faster here. So hopefully that makes sense. If this is something you can control in how things change in your videos. So we're watching that expansion again, and then the quick shrinking. Cool. So you know what, we don't even need this, and we don't need that. And I mentioned before, up here is the video, down here is the audio. We haven't done anything with the audio yet, but we will be adding audio in later. What I'm going to do is click on this audio, right click on link. That way I can just delete it. I can bring in audio, and I'm not sure if I have any. Let's see. Okay, so I do have some quick audio I can just place in as a demo. And just like the video that we did earlier in class, clicking, dragging it into the timeline and lining it up where I want it. And you'll see this audio is much longer. Much longer than my video. So I'm going to cut it the same way we cut our video. And you see, if I had audio on, you see it's playing here. So now we've added audio. Since a lot of these videos don't come with audio, though you're welcome to if they do come with audio, right click on link and just kind of like put it to the side so you're not doing any damage to the audio while we're, you know, cutting up clips. So a couple other things that we might need to go over in class, or didn't go over in class, but might need to cover. Actually, never mind. I will save that for a different demo. When we were finalized and happy with our edits, we exported, saving file name, video, demo, making sure this was an H.264 format, making sure the entire source scales to fit, and then we select export. This is exporting to my desktop, ideally, or not ideally, but by default it will save into the Adobe Premiere Pro folder if you didn't change that in the import settings. All right, cool. I think that's about it.